Midnight pressed heavy on the small town of Cold Creek, where the air carried the scent of wet pine and distant wood smoke. Sheriff Tom Granger sat on his porch with a half-drained glass of bourbon, staring into the kind of darkness that swallowed sound. His dog, a scarred old hound named Duke, pawed restlessly at the yard. At first, Tom thought it was nothing, just another raccoon or the echo of his own nerves. But when Duke clawed hard at the same patch of earth, growling low in his throat, something ancient stirred beneath the soil. Tom's bones went cold. If stories like this haunt you the way they haunt me, you might want to stick around. I've got more of them, and your quiet support means I can keep telling them. The clock on Tom Granger's wall had struck 12, though he didn't need it to know the hour. Midnight carried its own weight in Cold Creek, an invisible tide that pulled at every porch light, every barn, every heart that still beat in the valley. Duke had been restless all evening, first pacing the porch, then nosing the yard, then clawing at the dirt near the fence line. Tom ignored him at first, pouring bourbon into the cracked tumbler. He always swore he'd replace, but never did. A man needed his habits, especially in a town where ghosts hung thicker than fog. "Leave it," Tom muttered, his voice low and rough from too many years of smoke and late nights. But Duke didn't leave it. His claws tore the ground, scattering earth like a creature possessed. His growl wasn't the usual bark at shadows. It was deep, vibrating, as if pulled from somewhere older than the dog itself. Tom rubbed his face with a weathered hand, sighing, "Christ sake, Duke. What the hell's gotten into you?" He pushed himself up, joints aching, and walked toward the dog. The yard was damp, the air heavy with dew. A chorus of crickets hushed as he approached, silence spreading outward like ripples in a pond. Then Duke stopped. He froze over the torn patch of dirt, chest heaving, eyes locked on the ground as though it might rise up and speak. Tom crouched. The smell hit him first, damp earth mixed with something sour, faint but undeniable. He knew that smell. Death had a way of marking itself into a man's memory. The hound growled again, snapping Tom out of his trance. "Back off," he said softly, pulling Duke away by the collar. The dog resisted, muscles taut, then reluctantly gave in. Tom knelt closer. His fingers brushed the soil. It crumbled easily, too loose for this time of year. Someone had disturbed it not long ago. He dug with his hands, quick, reckless scoops. The deeper he went, the worse the stench. A shard of wood surfaced. Not new, splintered, weather-stained. Tom scraped more away until he uncovered a corner of a box, buried shallow, as though whoever had hidden it wanted it found, or wanted forgotten quickly. The sheriff's breath hitched. His pulse drummed in his ears. He fetched a spade from the shed and returned, digging faster now, Duke barking behind him. Dirt flew in dark arcs. Finally, the full box lay exposed. It wasn't large, maybe 3 feet by 2, the kind of thing used for tools or keepsakes. But the iron latch was rusted shut, the wood swollen from years underground. Tom knelt there, staring. A part of him, the weary part that had carried Cold Creek secrets for decades, wanted to cover it again, to pretend this night had never happened. But another part, the one that had sworn an oath long ago, reached for the latch. It resisted, groaned, then snapped under the leverage of his spade. He lifted the lid. The sight inside buckled him. Tom staggered back, his breath torn from his chest. His knees hit the ground, and for a moment, the sheriff of Cold Creek was nothing but a man drowning in horror. Inside the box, wrapped in decayed cloth, lay bones. Small ones, a child's, and nestled against them, still clinging to scraps of faded fabric, was something else. Something that should not have been there at all. A badge. Sheriff's badge. His badge. Tom collapsed forward, clutching the dirt as though the earth itself might steady him. Duke barked wildly, circling the grave as if trying to warn off something unseen. But the night had already opened, and what it had given back would not be buried again. The wind rose from the valley, slipping between the pines and rattling the loose shutters of the Granger house. Sheriff Tom Granger sat on the damp ground, staring at the box, Duke at his side, growling at nothing but shadows. The badge gleamed faintly under the moonlight, its tarnished silver reflecting decades of secrets. Tom's hands trembled. He didn't reach for the phone, didn't call the deputies, didn't tell his wife. This was Cold Creek, and in Cold Creek, you solve your ghost alone. He lifted the cloth covering the bones. The child's skull was small, brittle, teeth intact. But what made Tom's stomach twist wasn't the age. It was the way it had been hidden so carefully, almost ceremonially, like a secret the town had tried to bury. Duke whined, nosing at the box, pressing against Tom's chest. The dog's instincts screamed at him. Tom closed his eyes for a moment, feeling the weight of the years pressing in. "Who did this?" he whispered. No answer came, only the wind and the distant sound of an owl. Tom pulled himself to his feet, brushing dirt off his coat. He picked up the badge. He remembered the night it disappeared. The scandal, the rumors, years ago, a missing child, a cover-up, whispers that had never been spoken aloud. And now here it was, right in front of him. He knew one person he could call. Deputy Lila Hart. Lila's truck lights cut through the darkness when she arrived. The engines hum low, respectful. She jumped down, flashlight in hand, eyes sharp, reading the scene before her even as she approached. Tom. Her voice cracked, caught between shock and suspicion. He handed her the box, letting the dirt fall from its edges. "I found it," he said, voice low. "All these years, right under my nose." Lila knelt beside him, careful, meticulous, yet trembling as she peered inside. "Oh, God," she murmured. Her fingers brushed the bones. The badge. "How?" Tom shook his head. "I don't know yet, but someone wanted this hidden. Someone powerful." They both knew what that meant. Cold Creek was small, tight-knit. Everyone knew everyone. But some sins ran deeper than family, deeper than loyalty, and those sins didn't stay buried forever. "You need to tell someone," Lila said finally. Her eyes flicked to the woods. "We can't just—" "Not yet," Tom interrupted. "If we rush this, we lose the evidence. And if the wrong person finds out I've uncovered it, they'll come for me." The night felt alive with danger. Shadows shifted in the tree-line. Or maybe it was just imagination. Duke growled again, low and urgent. Tom clenched his jaw. "We'll start tomorrow. First light. For now, we dig deeper." Lila hesitated. "Into what?" "The past," he said grimly. "And maybe into people we thought we could trust." The next morning, they returned with tools, flashlights, and gloves, determined to sift the earth and uncover what else had been hidden. Tom's stomach churned as he worked, sweat mixing with the mud. The box had been shallow, almost careless, but the ground beneath it felt ancient, like it had secrets even older than the child's remains. Hours passed in silence, punctuated by Duke's occasional bark at nothing. Tom noticed something as he dug deeper. A faint indentation in the dirt, circular, almost like a well, lined with stones. Someone had gone to extraordinary lengths to conceal this place. "What is it?" Lila asked, kneeling beside him. Tom shook his head. "I don't know, but it's deliberate. Someone made sure no one would stumble upon it for decades." He paused, heart hammering. "And yet we found it." The tension in the air thickened. Each scoop of dirt felt like peeling back the layers of Cold Creek itself, revealing rot beneath the surface of civility. Suddenly, Duke barked furiously, teeth bare at the edge of the excavation. Tom froze. He looked down and saw something glinting among the soil and rocks. Metal. Sharp. He picked it up carefully. A small engraved locket, rusted but intact. Inside, a photograph of a smiling man and woman. A child in the middle. Tom's throat tightened. The man looked familiar. Too familiar. "Tom," Lila's voice was barely audible. She was staring at him, suspicion and fear mingling in her gaze. "Is that—" He swallowed hard. The recognition hit him like a freight train. The man in the photo had been his father's friend, Sheriff Daniel Granger, the man who'd raised Tom after his parents died. A man whose hands, Tom realized with horror, might have been dirtier than anyone dared whisper. Duke growled again, nipping at the locket, as if warning Tom not to go further. The sheriff's office had always been a place of order, of law. But now, Tom realized, law had a shadow, a darkness that reached into the very foundations of his life, his town, and even his family. Lila's hand rested lightly on his shoulder. "We need to tell someone." Tom shook his head. Not yet. Not until I know exactly who we're dealing with. One wrong move. His voice trailed, heavy with implication. The day stretched on, each moment heavier than the last. The excavation revealed more bones, small fragments that had been deliberately scattered, making it almost impossible to piece together the crime. But the locket, the badge, and the unmistakable evidence of human malice left no doubt. Someone had orchestrated this, and someone still remembered. By evening, the sky had turned a bruised purple, and the first stars pierced the clouds. Tom and Lila stood over the pit, exhausted, sweat and dirt caking their clothes. Duke lay quietly at Tom's feet, ears twitching. The dog had sensed it all. He always did. The danger, the deceit, the truth that no human could fully see. Tom stared at the earth, feeling the weight of his father's past, of Cold Creek's hidden sins, and of his own role in a legacy he thought he understood. Somewhere in the shadows, a figure watched, silent, patient, waiting for the sheriff to stumble. And Tom knew, deep down, that this was only the beginning. Night fell over Cold Creek with a quiet vengeance. The wind whispered through the pines, carrying the weight of decades-long secrets and unspeakable truths. Sheriff Tom Granger sat by the pit, Duke curled beside him, both tense and alert. The locket, the badge, the scattered bones, they all hummed with the echoes of a history that had been deliberately hidden and now demanded reckoning. Tom's mind raced, replaying faces, names, and events. The photograph in the locket had confirmed a connection he hadn't wanted to see. His father's closest friend, Sheriff Daniel Granger, had been involved. Or worse, he'd orchestrated concealment. It was more than betrayal. It was a violation of trust at the very core of his life. You think he's still alive? Lila's voice was barely a whisper, tight with tension. Tom didn't answer. He had learned long ago that speculation was dangerous in Cold Creek. The town had a way of swallowing those who pried too deep, those who thought they could untangle the past without consequence. Hours passed. Shadows stretched like black fingers across the yard, and Duke's growls echoed in the silence. Then movement, a figure emerging from the trees, slow and deliberate. Tom's hand hovered over his holster. Lila's flashlight caught the glint of metal in the figure's pocket. Tom, the voice was familiar, chillingly so. You shouldn't have dug. Sheriff Daniel Granger stepped into the moonlight, older, frail-looking, but with eyes sharp and cold, a predator disguised as a man. His presence brought the past crashing down. The lies, the disappearances, the rumors that had never been addressed. What did you do, Dad? Tom's voice was low, trembling. Why? Daniel's lips twisted, a ghost of a smile. You think this town runs on justice? It runs on survival. Some things are meant to be hidden. The confrontation cut deeper than any bullet could. Duke barked, circling Daniel, sensing the danger that humans often ignored. Lila moved subtly, hand on her weapon, but careful not to provoke. I didn't hide it for myself, Daniel said quietly, almost pleading. I hid it for him, for them. You don't understand the stakes. What stakes? Tom's voice cracked. You hid a child's remains in the ground? You had evidence that could have saved lives. Daniel's eyes flickered with shame, or perhaps calculation. Sometimes protecting the guilty protects the innocent. You don't get to judge me yet. Tom felt rage boil, but beneath it was something worse. Sorrow. The betrayal cut into his bones. Everything he thought he knew about his family, about his town, about himself, was suddenly unreliable, fragile. The standoff broke when Duke lunged, snapping at Daniel's heels. Tom grabbed the dog, holding him back. Stay, boy. Let me handle this. Daniel backed away slowly, but Tom's gaze never left him. Every instinct screamed that this man was dangerous, yet vulnerable. And Tom knew he had to act with precision, not just for the law, but for the ghost of Cold Creek, for the child, for himself. You're going to tell the truth, Tom said steadily. Every name, every secret. You're going to make this right. Daniel hesitated. In that pause, decades of deception trembled on the edge. Then he nodded, a small, defeated movement. He could fight, resist, or run, but the weight of his sins had finally caught up. Hours later, as the first light of dawn pierced the forest, the sheriff and deputy documented the evidence. Statements were recorded, photographs taken. Coal Creek would never be the same. Justice wasn't immediate, but the air felt lighter somehow, though the scars would linger. Tom stood over the pit once more, Duke at his side, and closed his eyes. The bones were buried properly this time, a respectful ceremony beneath the rising sun. He felt the town's weight shift slightly, a quiet acknowledgement that some wrongs, though long concealed, had finally been confronted. Lila approached, placing a hand on his shoulder. "It's over, Tom." He shook his head slowly, a tear slipping unbidden. "Not really. Some things never end." Duke nudged him, growling softly as if to say that the past, for all its horrors, could still be survived. Tom looked at the dog, and then at the horizon. Coal Creek had its darkness, yes, but it also had resilience. And for the first time in a long while, Tom allowed himself a fragile hope that maybe, just maybe, the truth could be enough. He sighed a deep, quiet release and whispered, "We'll remember, and we'll move forward." The wind shifted again, carrying the scent of pine and earth, and for a moment, peace settled over the town. Not perfect, not complete, but honest. And in Coal Creek, honesty was the rarest gift of all. Epilogue. Back at the sheriff's office, Tom pinned the recovered badge to his wall, a reminder of the past and the cost of secrets. Duke lay at his feet, exhausted but vigilant. Lila prepared reports, her expression a mixture of relief and somber reflection. The case would make headlines, but the truth of Coal Creek's shadows will remain known only to those who had lived it. And sometimes that was enough. Tom took a deep breath, looking out the small town bathed in early morning light. The horror, the betrayal, the pain, it had all been real. But so had courage, loyalty, and the fragile bond between a man and his dog, standing guard against the darkness. And that, he realized, was enough to carry him forward.